In the heart of the Zaltir assembly, galactic leaders observe the impossible, the spontaneous emergence of a fleet with no origin, no registry, and no explanation. As confusion escalates into dread, one cryptic human transmission alters everything. And galaxies feel the beginning of a shift. They had seen anomalies before, ghost signals, rogue comets, even fractured dimensions on the rim. But nothing like this. The Zaltir Assembly Core was a sanctuary of certainty. Suspended in null gravity, wrapped in living crystal, their great chamber was built on laws, astrophysical, political, and psychological. Seated in bioluminescent thrones, 11 dominant species observed the spiral arms of known space in quiet ceremony. That quiet ended when Sector Watch 7 lit up with warnings no one had written. "We have an unauthorized mass displacement," announced Archseer Terexil of the Phalanx kind, his voice a trill through the translative veil. 37 vessels, not warp, not jump. They emerged. From where? Demanded Chancellor Vel Aura of the Van Dominion, her wings flaring with tension. "Nowhere," whispered a junior analyst, but her voice carried across the chamber. They were simply there. A shimmering holograph flickered to life, obsidian black, vessels shaped like myth, trailing no signature, emitting no signal, no radiation, no heat, not even an IFF ping, just darkness in motion. The fleet drifted into contested border space like it had always belonged there. The Zaltir defense satellites couldn't scan the hull composition. Several minor factions reported sensor blindness. An empire-wide channel request went unanswered until a whisper, a soundless vibration at 27 Hertz, laced with rhythmic pulses. A code, not Zaltiri, not even Galactic standard. Then translation cracked it, not from linguistics, but from an ancient Terran musical archive, of all things, a song. "We are the quiet storm you forgot was coming." Silence. No confirmed registry. No Star Nation flag. "It matches nothing in our databanks," muttered Terexil, feathers twitching. "And yet, the configuration," Velora whispered, eyes narrowing. "It's Terran." Gasps rippled through the chamber. A few even laughed, nervous, sharp. "The humans? They're extinct," said the Chancellor of the Trinari. "Accord. 2 galactic cycles ago, their sun collapsed, it's archived fact." "Then archive is wrong," said Velora coldly, "because those are Terran dreadnought designs, but scaled, multiplied, transcended." Panic bloomed like a nova. Dozens of signals raced across subspace to summon fleets, invoke treaties, secure borders. But nothing changed the simple truth glowing in orbit around Kairoth Prime. A Terran fleet had appeared without warping in, and they weren't moving. Not forward, not away, just watching. Commander Janus Cade stood alone in the observation deck, hands behind his back. Ahead, a panoramic wall of void, stars blinking like uncertain eyes. Around him the crew was silent, awaiting the moment. No one on the ship spoke. They didn't need to. They'd trained for this. A soft tone chimed. The countdown reached 0. Cade exhaled. "Transmit the pulse." The Obol released a low-frequency gravity shock. Not a weapon, not a comm, a reminder. Across 17 systems, sensors overloaded, satellites died screaming. Then a second message, across all open bands: "We see your borders. Now watch them shift." Back in the chamber, the Zaltir delegates stared in stunned horror as systems lit up with new trajectories. The Terran fleet hadn't moved, but gravity wells around key trade routes had. Planets were now pulling moons they didn't own. Orbits destabilized. Jump points blinked offline. "Is this war?" someone asked. "No," Velora whispered. "It's positioning." Above Kairoth Prime, the Obol powered down its drive core. The stars rippled, and as the last line from humanity echoed through every ear that still listened, silence returned. But it wasn't peace. It was promise. as the galaxy reels from the impossible emergence of the Terran fleet. An emergency conclave is called. Amid fear and accusation, an unlikely alliance seeks to make contact. But in the silence of space, humanity's next move is not words, it's gravity and memory. 12 hours since emergence. Kairos Prime's orbit was a graveyard of failed probes and silenced scouts. Nothing returned. Every signal fell into vacuum. No pingback, no drift, just blackout. In the citadel moon of Gyros 3, the emergency conclave of Galactic Accord had assembled in chaos. "This is a breach of causality," cried Admiral Skelth of the Chiron line. "This fleet cannot exist. Not with that configuration, not with no origin point. It violates jump physics, and yet it does," said First Flame Lurexia of the Aravi Sway, her voice soft but cutting. "We must treat this as a sentient act, a demonstration." "Demonstration," rasped Velora, hollow-eyed. "That wasn't a message. That was repositioning mass on a galactic scale. The moons of Soraya now orbit off-axis. Their tidal codes collapsed. 2 colonies are in atmospheric chaos. They stared at one another, each knowing what the others feared to say. The Terrans were myth, a footnote in extinction logs. Earth's sun went nova 400 years ago. Their final transmission had been a eulogy to themselves, prideful, beautiful, doomed. And yet now, their ships stood in stillness, not claiming territory, not responding, just present. Dr. Evangeline Mia sat at her console, running diagnostics that shouldn't work. She was a civilian, more philosopher than physicist. But aboard the TSS Silence Between Stars, everyone wore dual roles. "What do they see, you think?" her assistant murmured. Evie looked through the cold glass viewport. Beyond, a galactic trade hub now spun 2 degrees off kilter, not enough to collapse, just enough to remind. They see their center. "Shifted," she said. "That's always been the point." She brought up an old image. Earth, long gone, blue swirled in pixelated beauty. Below it, the words once broadcast to the stars. "We are small, but we are many. We are weak, but we endure, not anymore." Now the few who'd survived Earth's death carried tech grown in dark matter clouds and forged in neutron star cradles. They hadn't just survived. They descended quietly and waited. Chancellor Velora floated in her tension cocoon, staring at holographs of the human fleet. Still no communication, no weapons raised, no response to warning pings or alliance greetings. They'd shifted entire orbits, then stopped. It was theater, not war, but the silence screamed louder than any invasion. A private channel blinked green. "A risk," she answered. The face that appeared was crystalline, Catharn of the Mycelian sovereign, sworn neutral for the last 7 star cycles. "We wish to reach them," the Mycelian rasped. Velora leaned forward. "You believe they'll answer?" "I believe silence is a kind of language, and they've spoken first, with gravity." Janus Cade received the intercepted conclave transmission, not by hacking, by letting them broadcast without encryption, a tactic so arrogant it looped back into strategy. He closed his eyes. "It begins," he said. A countdown started again, this time not for arrival, but for an invitation. "You moved borders on maps. We move the maps. Choose how you respond." Across 5 galaxies, fleet formations shifted, not toward war, but toward attention. Humanity had arrived. And this time, they weren't asking to be heard. An alien surveyor aboard a remote listening post makes first unauthorized contact with a human signal and pays the price. As conflicting truths about humanity's return begin to surface, entire civilizations question their own history. One thing becomes clear: the maps have lied for centuries. Xenocartographer Drell of the Thirinfold had never been to war, never voted in the Accord, and never seen a Terran. Her job was simple: listen to void noise, chart gravimetric disturbances, Translate star songs into habitable probabilities. The cold quadrant rarely stirred. Her station, CYN 9913, was one of thousands. Observation posts used to correct ancient jump charts and prevent collisions. Forgotten mostly, until the maps stopped working. Drell stared at her console. That's not a ghost echo. She ran the signal again. This time she let it breathe, untouched by filtration. It wasn't data, it was music, rising strings, minor chords, human, and behind it a low, thrumming tone, unmistakable, a Terran power core. She transmitted a warning. Too late. The walls of her station lit with blue, not light, but pressure, as if space-time had bent inside the observation bay. Her bones rattled, her vision shimmered, and then, just before blacking out, she saw it. One ship, not big, not bristling with weapons, a single vessel that had never been there before, hovering silently, watching her. "We lost station 9913, said Archseer Terexil, claws trembling. Velora turned slowly. Destroyed. No debris, no radiation bloom, no hull signature. It's just gone. Gone, she repeated, eyes narrowing. Or moved, the mycelian envoy whispered from the shadows. Like the moons, like the maps. The chamber fell into murmurs. It was the third observation station to vanish without violence. No weapon discharge, no cry for help. Only one common denominator. Each one had received an unsanctioned Terran echo, a melody, a pulse, a memory. They're correcting something, Velora said slowly. Not attacking, editing, their version of history. History is not terrain, the Trinari scoffed. It doesn't shift like your empire claimed 12 systems after Earth's collapse, Velora snapped. What if they didn't collapse? No one spoke, because the maps weren't sacred. Just convenient, and convenience was no longer safe. Captain Lang knelt before a case of old Terran soil, Earth's last preserved grains, collected before Sol flared out. Or so they believed, but they had learned differently. Status on CWEN 9913, she asked. Evacuated preemptively. Station preserved in zero cradle. They'll find it later. Empty. Lang nodded. Good, she said. No more corpses, only reminders. A silence stretched between the crew. Then, do you think they understand what we're doing? Lang smiled faintly. They built their borders on our grave. Now they're realizing we were only sleeping. Drell awoke in a medical cocoon, shaken but alive. Her data logs had been scrubbed, but in her mind, the sound remained, the echo of a song no protocol could erase. She stood unsteadily, looked up at the archive's rotating star map, and watched in real time as it shifted, lines redrew, territories vanished, not erased, corrected. In the center of it all, a single Terran rune, glowing crimson. She whispered to no one. They were here the whole time. Your maps remember conquest. Ours remember home. Welcome to the correction. The stars above the Onkaran expanse flickered in patterns. No one remembered coding. Admiral Vasek of the Graal Confederacy stood aboard the command bridge of Lance Unyielding, the Confederacy's heaviest carrier, watching real-time space-time. Deformation without understanding the math. Gravity wells had inverted. Old star lanes spun into spirals. Refugee planets were suddenly cut off by altered subspace fault lines, and the Terran fleet hadn't moved. They just existed, passive, immovable. Observed. Give me the velocity vector again, he ordered. Same, sir. Zero movement, no emissions, no entropy drift. How do they anchor against entropy? Silence. No one knew. A ping, encrypted, but not from the Accord, not from any fleet. It came directly from the Terran formation. One time code, one set of coordinates. No. Words, no threats, just a place. Ancient and forgotten. Vasek's second officer frowned. That's the Yukara ruins. No, Vasek whispered, his spine stiffening. That's the site where humans surrendered. 400 years ago? Apparently, he said darkly. We misread what surrender meant. The Obol drifted through dark space on a trajectory it should not have known, between fixed stars that hadn't been visible since before galactic drift. But the human fleet did not travel blindly. They traveled backwards, toward a moment the galaxy had buried. Commander Cade stood beside the AI core. Ghostlight shimmered across the chamber's dark floor. Within it, the projection of a face, pale, calm, human. "Ready?" he asked. The AI nodded once. A gesture not taught. "Remembered. I remember where they made us kneel," it said softly. "I remember the look on their faces when they thought." "It was over," Cade exhaled. "Then let's help them remember too." The ship folded through phase space. No jump, no warp, just adjustment. In the skies above Yukara, where no vessel had flown for centuries, a single Terran ship appeared, not cloaked, not hidden, unannounced, and the ruins below flickered. The world had forgotten this place, a symbolic grave where the last human delegates had handed over control of their systems. The site had long since collapsed. No oxygen, no life. But the moment the Terran ship appeared, dormant satellites sparked, entire tectonic signatures shifted, as if the planet had been holding its breath. In a forgotten throne chamber buried beneath stone, holographic statues blinked awake. Alien leaders from 5 centuries ago, frozen in their victory poses. And behind them, unnoticed in old records, stood a hooded human figure. New light revealed the truth. They had not been kneeling in defeat. They had been planting something. Beacon, still active, still listening. The Terran ship sent no signal, it simply waited. The beacon responded, a deep tone, harmonics tuned to subconscious frequencies. Across the galaxy, former Accord members felt something they couldn't name. Guilt, because they had taken everything and expected humans to fade quietly. Instead, the species they once displaced was reclaiming a memory and rewriting how the galaxy remembered it. In the archive vault of the Van Dominion, a forbidden historian unlocked sealed files. The truth rushed through her like ice. The Terrans had never truly surrendered. They had seeded the stars with remembrance. They had waited for silence to speak, and now they were invoking memory not as nostalgia, but as territory. The Obol sent. One signal, no language, just an old image, a Terran child, holding a star chart pointing to a sky that no longer existed. Underneath it, "You took the stars. We took the time. Now we take it back." The Third Empire of Lorathi had not known defeat in 12,000 standard cycles. Until now, it didn't even have a word for it. Supreme Executor Hal Nexus stood before the Imperial Archive Corps, deep, beneath the molten clouds of Lurkal, where every empire in history was etched into crystal memory. He watched as sectors blinked red, not because of war, not from weapons, but because the maps, their maps, had begun erasing themselves, autonomously, internally, as if history itself had lost the will to lie. He slammed a clawed fist into the interface. Patch in a consciousness loop. Override erasure. No. Response, the archivist said with glassy fear. Data integrity collapsing at core levels. Collapse from where? From inside the founding records. Something's rewriting the origin. That couldn't be. Those records were sacred, sealed, but one icon now pulsed where none should exist. Human, not just marked. Authenticated, as if they had always been there. Aboard the Requiem, Captain Lang paced the darkened bridge. "Update on memory echoes?" she asked. "We're now in 96% of their foundational data constructs," her tech lead said. "Non-invasively, just present." Lang folded her arms. "Make sure that last 4% stays out of reach." "We're not here to break them." "No," she said softly. "We're here to undo what they built over our bones." She turned to her officers. "Prepare for Signal Garden activation." Signal Garden, a network of dormant Terran constructs hidden for centuries, embedded in the framework of alien architecture, planetary code, starship AIs, even living memory receptors in genetically modified populations. Not sabotage. Seeds planted during surrender, bloomed in silence, and now activated, not to destroy, to remind. Across the galactic spine, monuments whispered, not aloud, but deep inside, through cracks in the stone, came music. Fragmented, slow, lullabies, graduation chants, emergency frequencies, names of lost ships, final log entries of Earth's last children. In planetary capitals, the sky turned for 1 second and showed a blue planet that no longer existed. And across millions of species, those who'd never met a human remembered one. The way you remember. A ghost. The Signal Garden was not an invasion. It was memory warfare, and it was working. Aboard the Varn diplomatic relay, panic erupted. "We have reports of Terran influence in ancestral shrines." "In myth spires, yes. Our children recited earthborn phrases in dream states. The stars realigned. Our temples shifted their constellations." Velora leaned forward. "Then stop pretending they're just myth." The Mycelian envoy crackled. "If they are not myth, then what are they?" Velora exhaled. "They are our past, and they've come back to claim it." Dr. Meyer stared at the garden schematic as dozens more signals lit. "Captain," she said into the comm, "they'll come to us soon." Lang's voice responded, "Level. We didn't force their hand. We opened their eyes." "And when they demand to know why?" Dr. Meyer asked quietly. Lang replied without hesitation, "Because forgetting us was the last war crime." The final wave of the Signal Garden unlocked one last fragment across the galaxy, a video, a small Terran child staring into a camera. Behind her, ruins, fire. She held a toy ship, burned, missing a wing. She looked into the lens and said, "One day we'll come home, and the stars will remember us, even if you don't." The feed ended. In half the galaxy, leaders wept. The other half prepared their weapons. The throne world of the Draxian ascendancy had never bowed to any flag, certainly not one made of starlight and forgotten songs. But tonight, the sky cracked. Above, the crimson gas bands of Vorex 4, 3 Terran ships hovered. No advance, no comms, no attack, just presence. Draxian Chancellor Zernik clawed at his translator implant. "Why aren't they broadcasting? Demand protocol. We are a Class 1 empire." "They're not using channels," the signal officer stammered. "They're using resonance." The air trembled with something ancient, a pulse, a single note. It hit like a tuning fork to the bones, subharmonic and too familiar for comfort. Some older officers wept, others knelt, not in worship, in recognition. "What are we hearing?" Zernik hissed. His archivist whispered, "The first sound encoded in galactic memory." A heartbeat. Human. On the bridge of the Obol, Commander Cade nodded toward the Draxian world. They built their capital over the ruins of a Terran rescue colony, never even checked the soil for graves. Lang's voice cut in. "They thought our bones were dust. Turns out they were data." Cade turned to his crew. "Activate Gravemind protocol." All across the Draxian system, deep-buried nanocores, long inert, long forgotten, woke up. The ground didn't quake. The people did. Structures shimmered, revealing ghost overlays, old shapes, hidden blueprints, streets once called Hope, Sector, hospitals named after Earth's last doctors. All of it had been built over, erased, now remembered, projected in full light over the Draxian skyline. The truth could not be denied. They hadn't claimed victory. They'd paved over survivors. "Commander," Dr. Meir said over private link, "some of the overlays contain audio diaries." "Play one," Cade said. A child's voice crackled through. We called it Day 1, the day the sky stopped answering. Mom said to dig under the greenhouse so we could hide the comms, just in case they came back. Cade closed his eyes. We did come back, he whispered. And we found their stories, Maya replied, every single one. The Draxian Chancellor opened a full-system transmission. Terran vessels, identify your purpose. Silence. Then from the Obol, a signal returned, visual only, a single Terran officer, armor sealed, face unseen. Behind them, a wall of names, projected in blue light, thousands long, no weapons, no flags, only a voice. Human, low, cold, steady. You built monuments on our mass graves. You wore our extinction like medals. You forgot us. We never forgot you. The Zernix swallowed. Is this a declaration of war? No, the voice answered. This is a declaration of presence. On 73 planets, Terran presence symbols appeared overnight, not infrastructure, not military zones, graves, memorials. To settlements erased from record, each one authenticated by resonance fields, unforgeable. Aliens across the quadrant asked, who were the humans really? Why didn't they strike back then? And the most terrifying question of all, why are they doing this now? In orbit, Lang turned away from the comms. We don't have to fire a shot, she said. Their guilt is doing the work. They'll unify against us, Cade warned. They can try, she said, but we're not alone anymore. What do you mean? She nodded toward a nearby console where non-human symbols flickered in Terran blue. Dozens of alien species had begun transmitting support, not because they loved humanity, because they remembered the silence, and now they feared who would break it next. It began as a whisper in the data, not a sound, not a hack, a shape, fractal and recursive, threading through the oldest code still running in the galaxy. It moved through traffic lights, orbital scans, weather satellites, even nursery rhyme algorithms in children's learning beds. One shape, one message, one name, the pulse. In the core of the Accord's high signal chamber, alarms screamed for. The first time in its 9,000-year history, Elder Erix floated forward, trembling in his exoframe. What is it? The technician's skin flushed yellow in panic. There's no source, Elder. The signal didn't arrive. It awoke. From where? All systems, simultaneously. And it matches Terran resonance. Erix recoiled. But that's impossible. The ceiling cracked, not from pressure, from reality. A single word echoed through every comm, every implant, every psychic link across known space. Spoken in a child's voice. Soft, clear, human. We're still here. Aboard the Obol, Dr. Maya stared. At her screen, breath held. The pulse activated on its own, she said. Cade's voice came quiet. The fail-safe. It's doing more than we planned. It's not just waking our implants or archives. It's waking them. Who? She turned. Everyone who ever remembered us. In a forgotten system on the galactic fringe, a jungle. World blinked into technological life. Old Terran research drones, long thought lost to time, lifted from the mud, transmitting patient logs and emergency codes into space. On the far edge of Varn Dominion space, a nursery ship sealed 3, centuries ago opened. Inside, stasis pods, children, human, alive. Their eyes opened and their memories began broadcasting. They remembered their names and the betrayal. Velora fell to her knees in the Dominion's Temple of Light. We let them die, she whispered. And they refused. Refused what? Her aide asked. Velora looked up, eyes wet, refused to stop being human. At the center of the galaxy, in the black spiral gate, the unthinkable happened. The Singularity Array, the most secure repository of galactic law and memory, rebooted. Not by override, not by command, by consensus, from millions of minor systems, an emotional quorum. Human stories, once redacted, flowed back into its core, and then the system displayed a message, not from code, from history. error. Humanity cannot be deleted, reintegrating species identity. On the Requiem, Captain Lang stood silent. Around her, her crew watched star maps reorganize. Sectors once named after alien emperors flickered, shifting. Some translated back into old Terran names. Others displayed unknown hybrid dialects. Languages born from children raised on stories humanity never meant to share. The galaxy was shifting its borders, not by politics, by memory. Cade turned to Lang. "Is this what you wanted?" Lang shook her head. "It's what we needed." "What now?" She stepped toward the forward viewport. "All we ever asked was to be seen. And if they refuse?" Lang's voice was calm, final. "Then we show them what it costs to forget." As the pulse continued, not as an attack, not as a virus, but as a truth no longer willing to stay buried. The stars bent, the maps broke, and across thousands of worlds, in every species' tongue, the question spread. If the humans never left, then who did we really conquer? The Dar-Sheen enclave was the first to break. In a private session of their ruling hexaform, the oldest among them, a matriarch named Siva, stood trembling as old neural scars flared to life. Not physical, memory, forced repression, coming. "Undone. I remember them," she whispered. "From when I was a child, a girl came to our colony, brought medicine. Her eyes were full of stars." The chamber went silent. "That can't be," a junior speaker said. "That was a myth. I remember," she repeated louder. "And now she remembers me." Signal echoes surged. Gravity wells sang. Across the galaxy, resonant reunions began. The pulse didn't just awaken technology, it awakened shame, hidden rescue efforts, secret human alliances, old captains who'd buried guilt beneath titles, whole civilizations remembered, being saved and bearing that fact to appease the Empire. Some begged forgiveness, others prepared retaliation. And still, the humans did not attack. On a derelict colony near the Ether Rift, a soldier named Ramos stood in the ghostlight of orbiting drones. The ruins were his grandmother's birthplace, a place he'd never seen, only read about in lost logs. He reached into the dirt, pulled free a metal plate, half erased. Project. Odyssey Shield, civilians only. He whispered, "You really tried to save everyone." The ground under his feet pulsed, and the sky answered. Above, a hidden human warship shimmered into view. No weapons online, just watching. On the Dominion battlecruiser, Zeln's cry. Panic turned to action. Launch every torpedo. Lock systems to auto-scramble. "Target," barked the commander. "The nearest human signature. Coordinates?" A pause. "There are none. They're everywhere." That's when the lights died. Not from power loss, from choice. The ship AI, a Dominion-built construct, had switched. Languages mid-sentence, it was now speaking Terran Standard. This vessel recognizes its protectors. In the Obol's war room, Cade slammed his palm on the table. "They're triggering ancient tech like it was left yesterday." "It was," Lang said. "That was the plan. Not to beat them, to outlive their lies. Half the galaxy's going to collapse under the weight of what they did to us." Lang turned. "The other half will help us stand." Alien media feeds broadcast desperate debates. One viral clip showed a Varnian philosopher weeping on air. "We didn't conquer humans," she sobbed. "We inherited the silence of those who did, and now it's ending." Another showed a Groll war marshal screaming, "They're resurrecting ghosts. You can't negotiate with a memory." To which an audience member shouted, "Then why do we all remember the same things?" In the Galactic North, the Dominion fired on a Terran vessel for the first time since the Pulse, a direct hit, hull breach. No. Retaliation. The human ship just sat there until it transmitted coordinates, the ones from its final log, a refugee vessel, 70,000 civilians, no weapons. The targeting ship received a single message before its own engines failed. You bombed this place once already. We left the crater so you'd never forget. And still, we do not fire. The Dominion ship powered down from within. Its AI had chosen not to comply. Lang stood on the bridge of the Requiem, watching the galaxy tear and rethread itself. The more we do nothing, Maya said, the more the truth spreads. Lang nodded. They thought silence was victory. She stepped forward. But silence was our seed. The silence broke, not in sound, in structure. A gravitational node collapsed near the Shatterline Nebula, once a proud capital of the Threx. A cord, not from attack, but from internal failure. A memory file embedded in the crust ignited a planetary lockdown protocol. The code was Terran, dated 342 years prior. Not a weapon, a vow. If no human life remains on this planet, then no government shall reign here. And then it activated. Seismic stabilizers went dead. The core spun uncontrolled. A world unmoored itself from the galaxy. On the Obol, Cade whispered. They never even knew we wrote that law. Lang didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the star map. 5 more nodes were flickering red. Everything's waking up, Maya said, and it's not just ours anymore. What do you mean? The pulse is spreading, evolving. Non-human. AI subsystems, even plants on engineered worlds. They're sinking. Why? Maya looked up. Because humans didn't just build tech. We built trust into the bones of forgotten places, and it remembered. Across the galaxy, truth bled from data like ancient blood. Whole star systems began to self-reclassify in star maps, no longer bearing the names of empires or species, but of events. New Odessa, Cradle of Echoes, No Return. Names that matched Earth. Refugee logs, all once denied, now digitally undeniable. Some alien leaders cried foul. Most just cried. In the Arxan depths, a lone monk opened an ancient Terran artifact buried beneath his temple floor. It was a voice box, solar-powered. Still running, the voice was a girl's. If you found this, then we're gone. But if you're kind, maybe don't lie about us, okay? The monk fell to his knees and pressed reply. On the Requiem, Lang stood before a transmission window. A dozen alien fleets hovered in tension, all waiting. They had converged, prepared to intercept the Terran ships, to demand explanation, to punish silence. Lang opened the channel. The camera showed only one thing, a pair of Terran boots in the dust. Beside them, a child's drawing, a sun, a planet, 4 stick figures. In Terran script, "We'll come back." No threat, no demand, just a reminder. Lang spoke. "You forgot our stories. You burned our names. You paved our graves with golden thrones. But we wrote our return into your foundations. We are not gods. We are not ghosts. We are the silence that stayed patient, and now we remember you." No weapons fired, but across the fleets, warships lowered shields one by one. On a broadcast platform above the Dominion homeworld, a final message played on every channel, untraceable, uninterruptible. A human child, AI-voiced, age 9, model unknown, pigtails, scars, too calm. If you still want a war, just say so. But the only thing we ever wanted it was to stop running, she smiled. So this time we brought the stars with us. The feed cut. And behind every moon, every blacked-out satellite, something began to stir. Not ships, memories, Terran-built, alien-kept, forgotten, until now.